I want to genuinely welcome you all here at the Jewish Theological Seminary. We've been doing intergroup and interfaith outreach since 1938. This institute, under the name Milstein, is in its third year, but in our previous iteration, or I can be really interreligious and say in our previous incarnation, we were first the Institute for Religious and Social Studies, founded by my teacher Louis Finkelstein and his friend from Columbia University, Professor Margaret Mead. And then in the mid-90s, thanks to a gift from the Stein family, we were able to change the name of the institute to the Louis Finkelstein Institute for Religious and Social Studies. And we are very proud that it continues to bear the name of our former chancellor. I'm exceptionally delighted tonight that we are not the only sponsors of this event. Indeed, our colleagues, the conservative movement of Judaism worldwide, Masorati Olami, whose banner is to my left, that is just a coincidence of placement, not a political statement, but they have been incredibly kind in arranging Rabbi Skorka's tour. I know you're all here to hear him and not me. Avram, I should tell you, walking in, someone said, yes, we came to hear the Pope's rabbi. So, but I just want to beg your indulgence for one moment. Today is the anniversary, the one-year anniversary of Hurricane Sandy. And the governor of New York has asked that we observe a moment of silence. So I would like you to join me right now in observing that moment for the victims of the devastation. Thank you. Let me just lay out the plan of the evening's program so that you know what we will be doing when. I'm shortly going to call on my esteemed colleague, the Chancellor of the Jewish Theological Seminary, to introduce our speakers. But after Arnie Eisen does his introduction, Rabbi Skorka, hold up book it says, Rabbi Skorka will be speaking to us about his long-term and rich relationship with then Archbishop in Buenos Aires, Argentina, Bergoglio, now Pope Francis. And if not during your initial talk or during the dialogue, maybe during the questions, he will also share with us a little bit of how he celebrated the most recent Jewish holiday of Shmini Atzeret and Simchat Torah in Rome with the Pope. Following Rabbi Skorka's talk, he will engage in dialogue with one of my dear colleagues, Professor Emerita from Barnard College, just down the street, a Roman Catholic nun who has been engaged in Jewish Catholic dialogue for decades. And I wish I could hold up the book. I can hold up the Xerox of the cover of the book, which is Essays on Catholic and Jewish Relations in memory of Rabbi Leon Klinecki. And Celia Deutsch is the editor of that book, and we are very honored that her co-editor, Rabbi James Rudin, who is one of the giants of Jewish-Christian dialogue, is here tonight sitting with her. After Rabbi Skorka speaks and Celia engages him in dialogue, we will have the opportunity for questions and answers. You should have received, as you walked in, an index card and a little pencil. That's not to record your golf score, but rather, if during Rabbi Skorka's talk or during Celia's engagement with him, you have questions to ask, write them down on the card, and at the end of the dialogue between them, there will be ushers going through these two center aisles to collect your cards. I'll sort them, and we will have the opportunity to ask as many of your questions as time allots. It is my pleasure to introduce the Chancellor of the Jewish Theological Seminary, Professor Arnold Eisen.
Thanks, Bert. It's a pleasure for me to welcome you all here this evening. I spent a couple years studying at Oxford in the 70s, and one of the best parts of being at Oxford at that time was there were a lot of good Jewish jokes that were shared among the students and Jewish students and faculty at Oxford. And for some reason, a lot of these Jewish jokes had to do with the Pope, who was a frequent subject of Jewish jokes then and now. So there is a Jewish joke, which I liked a lot, about a Jew named Harry Schwartz. Some of you may know Harry Schwartz or a person like Harry Schwartz. Harry Schwartz is one of those people who knows absolutely everybody in the world, and everybody knows Harry Schwartz. And if Harry Schwartz doesn't know this person, Harry Schwartz will act as if he does know this person, right? So the story is told that one day there's a gathering in St. Peter's Square, and two figures appear up on the balcony of the Vatican, and everybody's talking to one another and asking the question, who's that guy up there with Harry Schwartz? Abraham Skorka is here in the Harry Schwartz role this evening. Friend of the Pope, and we all know Abraham Skorka well and get to recognize him walking down the street. If you see him walking down the street with the Pope, you may not recognize the Pope, and they're going to say, who's that guy walking with Abraham Skorka? I can tell you that the book, On Heaven and Earth, written by Abraham with Pope Francis, is a treasure. I'm a person who enjoys ecumenical dialogue. I think it's one of the great gifts that we have in this world, to be able to exchange deep insights with people of other faiths. I'm also a person who enjoys theology. I enjoy watching people engage in the discipline. I enjoy them responding to questions that religious people ask. And it's rare, in my experience, to see two people from two different faiths, particularly in print, be as direct and as deep, and let me even say courageous, as the Pope and Rabbi Skorka are in this book. And I would have to say that I told Avram this, that I kept being proud of him for not only being a good Jew in this book, but being a good Masorti Jew, and speaking in a way that Masorti Jews would speak on various issues, including abortion, other things, where the Pope will tell us what Catholic doctrine has to say, and Avram, being a good Jew and a good Masorti Jew, will have to say, well, you know, we don't all have the same opinion about this question. There are various rabbinic views, and we've disagreed for the following reasons, and this is what we think about this matter. It's really a joy to behold. I'm sure that all of us are going to experience some of that pride and some of that pleasure in hearing Rabbi Skorka speak in a few minutes. So let me just say a little bit more about him and about his interlocutor, Celia Deutsch, and then I will call them up to the stage. Rabbi Abraham Skorka is rector and professor of Biblical and Rabbinic Literature at the Seminario Rabínico Latinoamericano in Buenos Aires. He's the rabbi of the Jewish community, B'nai Tikva, and honorary professor of Hebrew law at the University del Salvador, Buenos Aires. Rabbi Skorka is a long-term dialogue partner with the current Pope Francis, beginning 20 years ago, when he was merely Archbishop Bergoglio, even before that. They actually did a TV show together for many years. They are long practiced in the art of dialogue, and as I think you'll hear this evening, an interfaith friendship makes for a really special interfaith dialogue. I learned just today, when I read something recently written about Rabbi Skorka, that another milestone was reached when the Argentinian Catholic University in Buenos Aires awarded Rabbi Skorka an honorary doctorate, presented him by the Cardinal, and it was apparently the first time that such a degree has been awarded to a Jew in all the history of Latin American Catholic universities. So milestones are reached, and we're looking forward to hearing from Rabbi Skorka about his life in dialogue with Pope Francis. His interlocutor this evening will be Professor Celia Deutsch, who taught at Barnard College from 1985 to 2012. She is now a research scholar in the religion department. Dr. Deutsch is a sister of Our Lady of Zion and recently became the coordinator of her order's international team for Jewish-Christian relations. And as you heard from Rabbi Vysotsky, she's the editor, along with Rabbi James Rudin, who is also here with us this evening, and Dr. Eugene Fisher, of the forthcoming book, Toward the Future, Essays on Catholic-Jewish Relations in Memory of Rabbi Leon Klinicki. We're in for a very special treat this evening, and with no further ado, I'd like to call Rabbi Skorka and Professor Deutsch to the podium. Please.
Good evening for all of you. First and foremost, I would like to thank to Master Theology, the Jewish Theological Seminary, for inviting me to this evening. And second, try to understand my English. You must know that this is my fourth language. It's not my mother tongue. My mother tongues were, and there still is, Spanish and Yiddish. And okay, try to understand. How to begin this story? Let us begin telling you about my first ideas regarding what the Christian world is. I received a special message from my father. He used to talk a lot with me and to transmit me all his points of view and all his ideas. And the message I received was a twofold message. From one side, okay, about the bad experiences in Poland, the Polish anti-Semitism, and about the pogroms and the story of the Inquisition and all what you know. But from the other side, I received the message, you must know that Jesus was a Jew, that the core of Christianity is Jewish. So we must pay certain attention. From one side, we continue living in a ghetto, but from the other side, there are certain special feeling from us regarding the Christian world. Here I met a few minutes before Professor Holtz, who is an expert in Agnon, and we can find this twofold sentiment also in Agnon. In several of his main novels, there are certain parts and anecdotes in which he says, okay, this is a Christian person, but he has certain kind of Jewish roots, and okay, not to enter into literary details regarding Agnon. So when I began serving as a rabbi in the congregation Barnard College in Province Buenos Aires, not in the capital itself, but very close to the capital, they had already there a tradition of a Christian-Jewish dialogue installed by the former rabbi Hirsch, and he had a very close friend named Father Poli, and continuing this tradition, I invited him for a Kabbalat Shabbat to give a message. And in that opportunity, he said that the best way to destroy all possibility of demonization of the Jew, of the other person, is just knowing, to be in touch, to get in touch with the other person through dialogue. This shocked me a lot. If you are close to the other, if you see the other through your human eyes, your sentiments, your feelings, if you project in the other the best of your capabilities to analyze the other. If you see in the other human being like you, this is the best of the ways. This is the key in order to erase all kind of anti-Semitisms and of hate and so on. In one word, also used to say in Spanish we used to say the satanization, from the word Satan, demonization of the other. So this is, from then onwards, I took very seriously the idea of dialogue, and I committed myself to dialogue, and I began working on this field. And I published several articles on this way in an important newspaper in Argentina called La Nación, which is the paper that Bergoglio used to read every day when he was in Argentina. And now, this was my beginning in dialogue, being briefly, of course. Now I would like to share with you a story which occurred here in New York when I was invited by the then Chancellor, Professor Ismar George, to teach in this institution a summer course during July 2002. Because this story has to do with this moment that I am sharing with Pope, with the Pope Francis. This story, now I understand really deeply, or I begin understanding deeply the meaning of this very, very strange story, which has to do a lot with my dialogue with the Pope. We arrived, my wife and me, here in New York, and we came here to the Jewish Theological Seminary. We arranged our belongings in the Chancellor's Suite, where we are now staying, and we asked where is a post office where to deliver some letters for the White House we received in Argentina from members of our congregation in order to protest for some point, some political point of the then president or America's policy regarding Israel. When we stood on the queue, just before us stood a woman, and in order to take advantage from the moment, from the time of our queuing, we entered in a dialogue with the woman, and we asked her, where can we buy here in the area good fruits? So she told, just on Broadway here, a couple blocks from here, there you can get good fruits, and where we can drink now a coffee, just on the same street you will find a cafeteria. Okay, we dispatched the letters, we saw the place where we can get good fruits, and we entered into the cafeteria. We entered in the cafeteria, what we saw, this woman sitting and eating noodles. For her was noodle time, for us was coffee time. Okay, in order to be polite, we shared the table with her, we entered into a conversation. She told us, she asked us, what are you doing here? Oh, I was invited by the Jewish Theological Seminary in order to teach Talmud. And she said, where are you from? Argentina. Ah, Argentina. Do you know Rabbi Marshall Meyer? Of course. He was the founder of our seminary. I am the rector of the seminary. And okay, we entered into a conversation with her, and she said, you know, I was a classmate with Marshall Meyer here in the Musical Institute, here in front here crossing, it's still the institute. So suddenly she asked us, do you hear about Abraham Yoshua Heschel? Of course, Marshall was very close to Abraham Yoshua Heschel, and he was one of the great Jewish thinkers during the past, in the 20th century. So, do you have any interest to see Sylvia Heschel? So I answered, yes, of course. She is not very good from a healthy point of view, but I will try to organize a meeting between you. I told her, I remember her when she visited us in the 70s, when she was already a widow, and how she presented in our seminary the Spanish translation of his famous book, The Prophets. So she gave us her phone number, and we remain in touch. First week, my wife, because this is a women business, so I asked my wife, please call her and try to see what is going on with our possible visit. First week occurred nothing. Second week, nothing. The last week, I told to Sylvia, you know what? Let us be polite. Call her. So we finished the relationship. We have to be polite with her. And for our great surprise, she said, this time I can organize. Sylvia Heschel. I spoke with her, and now you can come in and visit her. Okay. I thought it would be a good opportunity to see how is the apartment, how was the apartment of Abraham Yoshua Heschel, a historical figure, not only for the JTS, but for the whole world and for the America and United States story as well. So, and to pay her an honor and to remind with her her visit to Argentina. So we entered the apartment and she received us, and we told about her visit in Argentina. She said that in some way she reminds, as she stood on the staircase, and I told her, yes, I was, I shared that moment with you, the presentation of the book, and so on and so on. And suddenly occurred something that was totally unexpected for me. It was the eve of Tisha B'Av, the day we remember the destruction of the first and the second temple of Jerusalem, among other things, bad things. So she invited us for, let's say, for a coffee, but she prepared the coffee and cakes, and it was totally unexpected for me. I thought I came here just to be with you. Why do you have to honor me? And suddenly I felt that the whole atmosphere changed, and that some special relationship arose between us. Very strange. At certain moment I told her, you know what? She told me that Heschel, that she used to call Abraham Yoshua Heschel because, it was his family name, but it's a name in Yiddish. So at certain moment I told her, you know what? Your name and your husband's, your late husband's names are our names. It's just our names. My wife is Sylvia, as you, and my name is Abraham. At certain moment, it came a very strange idea to me. Look, maybe that you have a piece of paper with your husband, a note from your husband, because I would like to put in a framework in my studio, in the Seminario Rabínico, which the rabbinical department is named Abraham Yoshua Heschel, a piece of paper with some words that Heschel, a note of Heschel. What was her reaction? Her attitude was to go with me to the studio of the studio room of Heschel, and the Heschel's archive was locked with 2 locks. She opened both of the locks, and she told me, choose what you like and take. I remained a little bit astonished. I opened the first drawer, I take a look over, letters, Cardinal Bea, Cardinal this, Cardinal another Cardinal. This is not for me. This is for people who ask in the history and for researchment. Open the second one. When I felt, okay, from this, as I respect this archive, I will take nothing with me. Suddenly I opened the last drawer without hope, and I saw what? The drafts of the last book of Heschel. And the last book of Heschel, Yiddish, because at the end he published 2 books in the last days of his life. One book is a Passion for Truth, and the other one is in Yiddish. The only one book he published in Yiddish, Kurz, a Gerangel für Emestigkeit. Kurz, a struggle for truth. This is the literary translation. And I took 2 pages with Heschel's handwriting corrections, and I found out a very strange letter in a sheet of paper, but unfolded. So I suppose that it was a letter that he left for some person named Chaim, and in which he thanks this Chaim for the information he gave him for this book, regarding the Rebbe of Kotsk. And I took these papers with me, and she was totally conscient, and she knew exactly what she did, because she crossed the street with me, and she paid a couple cents for the Xerox copies of the papers, and I took the papers with me and left them here in the room, and woke with my wife, looking for a synagogue to hear Megillat Eicha, the roll of Eicha. But when I walked on the streets here in Upper West Manhattan, I said to my wife, "Are you aware what occurred this evening? Something very, very strange." Abraham Yoshua Heschel was a legend for me, and the point is that several times in my life, in a certain moment in my life, I search for a teshuvah, a responsa, a rabbinical responsa, giving me a backing regarding my attitude towards the dialogue with the Christians. And the response I found out was, no religion is an island. The very, very famous first lecture of Abraham Yoshua Heschel here in the Union Theological Seminary, when he was invited for a course in Jewish themes in the 70s, in the 60s. This paper was a light for my eyes. And it was the basement of all my deeds. Now, regarding my relationship with Bergoglio, just a couple lines. Now, to end this story, now I begin to understand this anecdote. Now I begin to understand the deep meaning of these papers that Sylvia Heschel gave me. And I remained astonished when this year I reread the book, Kaplan's book about Heschel, the second volume of the biography of Heschel, and when I read that, Heschel said, the last words Heschel said to Pope Paulus VI was, I hope to meet you, when he met him in the Vatican, I hope to meet you in Jerusalem. Because what I am working now with my good friend in the Vatican is that trip, or let us say in these words, our part in the trip to Israel, or to the Holy Land, because the idea is that I would like to go with him also to Bethlehem, to Belén. Belén is in English? Belén? Bethlehem. Bethlehem, because in Spanish is Belén. Is to be with him, of course, to pray together before the Kotel, and because it's a holy place for both of us, and to pay respect for him, going with him and standing alongside him when he prays in Belén, the special holy place for the Christian world. What to say about our special relationship? We began to organize all kind of activities since the beginnings of the 2000, of the first decade of this century. He invited me for interfaith prayings for peace and special opportunities. I invited him twice in 2004 and 2007 for Slichot, our special prayers before the Yamim Noraim, the holidays. And he delivered from the pulpit of my congregation his thoughts and his best wishes for my congregation and for the whole Buenos Aires community, because he is the Archbishop of Buenos Aires. In the second or the first time, I suppose that in the first time he came to our synagogue at this opportunity, and I gave him as a gift a Sidur from 1809, 1810, printed in Germany. And I told him, look, I give this Sidur in your hands. This Sidur was a prayer book for a Jewish family during decades, for a long time. And they came to Argentina through this family, or through part of this family, who had the possibility to escape from Germany during the Nazi time, Nazi time. So keep this in your hands from now onwards. But okay, this was a gesture from my side. But afterwards, I received a lot of gestures from affectionately gestures, a lot from his hands, from his heart. And as a Catholic thinker and doer, Andrea Riccardi, the founder of the Sant'Egidio congregation, told me last time when I spoke with him in Rome a couple weeks ago, your dialogue is very special because it is based on affection, on love from one to the other. The love is manifested through a total loyalty from one to the other. Believe me, when I ask from him something, when what I am asking from him is a thing that immediately he can fulfill that, he does that. He opens his heart with me as I do with him. We are dreaming together. Our dream is to go together to Israel. The visit, of course, is in two areas, on two fields. From one side, he is the head of a state, so the State Department has to arrange all the diplomatic details and so on, and all the protocol. But from the other side, there is a special area that I am discussing with him and chatting with him how to organize, what to do, and dreaming together. Since he became Pope, our friendship became stronger, and we feel closer each to the other. We felt a lot in the moment when we say one to the other. Last time when we said one to the other, bye-bye, and before our farewell in Rome, in the Vatican, he remarked me, okay, but we are going to see each the other again here on that day in January, next January, for that and that activity. So this is what I tell you at large about my conceptions of dialogue. We are aware that what we try to do is to put marks in history, if it's possible, but through the book, the idea was that through the programs, the 31 programs we recorded in Argentina, the idea was to speak to each one, not just to the religious person, but to the person of the street, as we used to say, to give him a message, to tell him that we still have what to tell, what to say to you about the dramas in your life. And nowadays, the idea is to try to perform some kind of turning point. We are aware that we are not going to change totally the reality of humankind, but we are trying to, and we are dreaming that with our doing, maybe deeds, I don't know if to use or not this expression, in a future could be a better world. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I've been following this story. One of the things that has struck me in the months since the election of Jorge Maria Bergoglio and hearing about his friend, Abraham Skorka, is that there's a new moment, in a way, breaking into this relationship on an official level. Sometimes I hear people talking about the dialogue in terms of Jewish Christian and Jewish Catholic relations. And I said to one person who's very much a part of that official dialogue one day, I said, what is the dialogue? Is that all of you people in a room together? And he said, no. He said, you're right. You're right. I said, there's so many dialogues. There's so many relationships. And one of the things that I think can sometimes happen is that the word gets sort of fixed in something official. And so much so that when you told me that the Pope wanted us to do more theology, I thought, haven't we been doing theology for the last 60 years? And then I realized there's something new. It has to do with the way that word is understood, at least in North America. In North America, theology is done by experts, and it's done in a very formal way by the people who know, like those of us who have a lot of letters after our names. The work that the two of you have done is something that's accessible to everybody. Everybody can hear, because it's not technical. It's a work that's founded, first of all, in relationship. Yours with Bergoglio, Francisco, Pope Francis. He has a lot of names for me. Oddly enough, one of them is brother. I think of him as a brother. And this way of doing things, I think, is a little bit disconcerting for people in the North, because we're used to doing the work first and then becoming friends. But what you're doing is a particular gift, I think, at this moment in time. It's giving us something that's founded first and foremost in friendship, and then produces something. And I think that this is a new moment. It's going to be very interesting to see how this shapes the future. And one of the things that struck me when I was reading the book on Heaven and Earth, Sobre el cielo y la tierra, is the ways in which you understand dialogue is an opening of the heart, and both of you, and of making the self vulnerable. That takes a long time. That takes being together over time. It takes friendship. And I think it produces a new richness and a new texture. When I think about how do I situate this in my understanding of Pope Francis, a friend of mine said to me, Celia, if you want to understand this Pope, you have to read the Aparecida document, which is a document produced by the bishops of Latin America, Central America, and the Caribbean in 2007, and it's sort of like a state of where we are in this part of the world. And that document is riveting. It's 160 or 70 pages long, and it's just gripping for three reasons, really. First of all, for Bergoglio, it is clear that everything is founded in discipleship to Jesus. That is what a Catholic is a disciple of Jesus, Catholic Christian. And the second thing is his absolute passion for the poor, the marginalized, the people on the peripheries. And one of the things that moved me most about his being was immediately saying to people, go to the streets. Go out there. And the shepherds should smell like their sheep. Sheep don't smell very nice. And sheep are stupid creatures. And so he's taking the role of leadership in a very new way. And he's understanding it in a very new way. The other thing that really struck me in reading Aparecida, as well as in reading another document from Central America recently, is the real sense of the reality of an interfaith world and the need for people to be in this, although it's a dominantly Catholic part of the world, but it's no longer a solely Catholic part of the world. And so these documents, which are written by and for Catholics, they're not written for interfaith audiences, are reflecting this new reality. One of the things that is a haunting question for me is this. First of all, the description. Your work and Bergoglio's work is founded on a friendship. And you were saying at dinner tonight that Jorge Maria Bergoglio has had Jewish friends since he was a child. He grew up in a city where there's a vibrant Jewish community, and there are some vibrant Jewish communities in South America, Rio and Sao Paulo and even Curitiba, and Montevideo, and of course Buenos Aires is probably the most prominent.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, and so then there's another piece of this. When the Nostra Aetate, the great Vatican document, was written, most of the world's Christians and Catholics lived in the north, lived in the south, where today the dominant number still lives. Huge numbers lived in the north. Now, at this point in time, the dominant group is in the south, and in the north, in this country at least, among Catholic Christians and to a certain extent Protestant Christians, at least half of the people who are in Catholic churches in this country are from the south. At least, the official statistics say 37% of American Catholics, U.S. Catholics, speak Spanish. And then there are people from the Caribbean, from Haiti, from Africa. So there's a new reality. And people are coming from places where they have never met a Jew, and sometimes they're moving to places in this country where they'll never meet a Jew. So the question that really I think is urgent in this is, how do we promote this kind of understanding in situations where the relationships are difficult at best and impossible sometimes? And there's no easy answer to this, but it's a question, and it needs, I think, for us as people who are engaged in this work to really examine carefully, and perhaps also for people to help congregants, people in the congregations and in the neighborhoods, understand just how important it is to form friendships, not simply organizations, but to form friendships, and to be with one another in the streets, in the demonstrations, as well as in the official meetings. I think that's about all. Not unless you want to. You don't have to.
No. Some answers to your points. I agree with Bergoglio. Bergoglio agrees with me that theology is not just a subject for very learned or for professionals. Mm-hmm. This is a matter of common sense. This is a matter that we have to project to your congregation. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, what is the intention and what is the challenge and what is really the task of theology? Theology is, as I understand that, how to build a connection with God, respecting your neighborhood. Mm-hmm. This is theology. It's very simple. All the ideas and all the books and all that, it's very, very impressive, very important, but it's not the essence. Bergoglio is a very pragmatic person. Mm-hmm. He studied a lot, and he has, of course, his own intellectual level, but first and foremost, the idea is to pragmatize the faith, the belief, the theology. He speaks in all his speech in a very simple way, with very simple words, but it doesn't mean that what he is transmitting is something superficial. No. It's very deep. He has a very deep message, but he expressed that in a very simple way. Why I have to be so sophisticated? What will be with that? When I studied sciences, I have a PhD in chemistry. The books, I really, when I studied the books, all the books, I said, this is not the presentation. I hate the presentation of the themes. Why? Because they immediately projected equations and theories, but I would like to know the ground of the things. First of all, you must know exactly what the theme is speaking about, not only how to handle with some concepts, but to know the essence, the core of the concepts, because this is a very simple book. But I suppose that, and the words of the Chancellor of the Jewish Theological Seminary, where I received them the compliments very, very well, with great satisfaction, that this is not a superficial book. And this is our way of understanding theology. It's very good to study Aquino, Kuzari, Rambam, and others in the seminaries, but in order to sharpen the mind. When I was a child, my father used to tell me, you must study Talmud. What for? In order to sharpen your mind. This was the first aim of studying Talmud. To know, of course, how to put tefillin and the laws of the tefillin and this and that, but one of the things is to sharpen the mind. But afterwards, you have to go to the world. You cannot be all the time in your intellectual world. One of the problems of Ratzinger is that he was too intellectual. True? True. Say that. True. This is one point. Now, regarding the dialogue in areas where there are not Jews, your second question. The first thing that we Jews are expecting from the whole Christian and the whole Catholic, but now we are speaking about from the whole Catholic world, but of course the idea is from the whole Christian world, is that each father and each sister has the clear idea and commitment that in each teaching and preaching he transmits a very clear message regarding what a Jew is, and about the good part, about the bad part, but especially about the good part of the Jewish Christian history in the past, because it's a very difficult history, but a very complicated history. There is a book which I used to quote many, many times, written by Professor Yaakov Israel Yuval, Shnei Goim bebitnech, two people in your womb. Yeah, the famous verse in Genesis, where he describes in the Middle Ages the very complicated relationships, influences and fights between Jews and the Christians in the Middle Ages Europe. But the first task nowadays is to get the success to erase anti-Semitic positions from all the parts, for all the members, from all the priests, because they are still throughout the world. And afterwards, when the message will be very, very clear, despite the non-presence of Jews, when the person, the Catholic, the Christian, will find a Jew, okay, he will know exactly who is standing before him. This is my answer to your second question.
Thank you.
I know that Celia and Avraham have been pen pals all summer long, emailing, preparing for this evening. But I also want to welcome the opportunity for those of you in the audience who have written down questions. If you pass your question cards now to the two central aisles, our ushers will collect them and I can sort them out. But Celia, why don't you do one more round with Avraham before we get to audience questions?
Okay. Let's see. I think one of the things that has struck me over the last few months, reading things you've written, reading things Bergoglio's written, is the language. I often think, I'm not a student of church governance. I don't know about the history of the papacy, for example. I know some, but I am a scholar of ancient texts. My world stops more or less about the year 400. But that my discipline has taught me to be attentive to language. What are the words? How are the sentences constructed? And the words that the two of you use instruct me about something. For example, you use the words of light and illumination when you talk about dialogue. And Bergoglio uses words like opening the heart and making a home. These are very different and new words for this reality, I think, in this context. And I think what they do is they set a new kind of climate. They describe a new atmosphere, or they propose a new atmosphere. It's not that people have not been friends. Every one of us who has ever been engaged in this work has cherished friendships. But these are things that grew almost as a result of a lot of labor, sometimes apart from the work, sometimes as a result of the work. And this kind of language, I think, is coming out of, first of all, relationship that sets the stage for and sets the arena for and sets the framework for the work. And I just wanted to underline that again. And the second thing is it's something that has to do with some of the interviews that Bergoglio has given, in which he talks about dialogue in the broader sense. It interested me in July when I was following his trip to Brazil. He met with the leaders, political and cultural leaders, and he says that when he's asked for his advice about how to proceed, how leaders should proceed, he said, it's dialogue, dialogue, dialogue. And it's always assuming that the other person really has something to tell me and something to give me. Not that I I really have all the answers, but I'll let the person speak. It's sometimes it's challenging to really step aside from what one knows and say, I better listen to this person. I better listen to these people because they have something that I don't have. The second thing that often strikes me is his use of the word journey, el camino. And the journey, the path or the road, el camino, is a very favorite word in Latino spirituality. It's in the songs, it's in the writing. Life is a journey, and it's not ending. It does not end. And he talks about the path that where the edges are, we don't see the edges. It's blurry. And so it means a lot of courage. It takes a lot of courage, for example, to go down a mountain path in the fog, because you have to go down that path. And I think that's a very powerful image for life in general, for life as Jews and Christians, and for the life of dialogue, for the life of interfaith dialogue. We don't know where it goes. All of us has had the experience of being with people of our own faiths, but also being with people of other faiths. And we end up in a place where we never thought we'd be. We understand ourselves. It's not that we become less Jew or less Christian, but we understand ourselves in new ways. And sometimes those are not very positive, but sometimes they are much richer and deeper than we had imagined. And so those are just a few of the things that they're not exactly responding to your remarks, but they're things that I've been thinking about as I've been reading you, and also listening to you and Bergoglio on YouTube. YouTube's great.
Avram, before you answer, I want to add to Celia's comments, because she's been asking about the journey and the shared journey that you have together. And there are two questions here from the audience that I think speak very well to the issues, and these are they. The first question is, a number of years ago, there was a bombing in Buenos Aires of the Jewish Community Center, and Bergoglio was then the archbishop. So someone is asking, how did he respond at the time? And then a second question about your joint journey is, you said you pray together. What do you pray?
Yeah. Bergoglio's declarations regarding his feelings on Judaism are not just very, very clear and sharp, as I assume that you already read in the last month, when he said, for instance, that in every Christian there is a Jew, and that anti-Semitism is anti-Christianity, and anti-Christianism is anti-Semitism. He is a very coherent person. He, during all the years of my knowledge of him, he had one way, one word, one commitment. He never aparted from the north of his ideas. I don't remember exactly. I was very, very shocked. Don't forget that I work a lot the days of the AMIA, of the Central Community Center. In those days, I work a lot in the tragedy, being together with the families who suffered casualties, and were very, very dark days. But let me tell you an anecdote with Bergoglio of 1.5 years ago, or 2 years ago, which describes exactly Bergoglio's feeling regarding the Jews. Someday he calls me by phone and told me, look, I read in a part of the Sunday newspaper of La Nación, which is devoted to general themes, to books, an excerpt from the book, from a new book, which describes the suffering of the Jewish soldiers in the Falkland Island or Malvinas Islands war, and how the officials treated in a terrible way the Jewish soldiers. And he remarked me, I would like to express to you my feelings, my shame, my sorrow regarding what I read in the paper. Feel me that I would like to tell you, because I am his special Jewish friend. He shares with me his feelings. And this was especially called me being the Archbishop of Buenos Aires. When he was invited to any institution for any act, we have his presence, and the doors of his place of the Archbishop of Buenos Aires were opened totally for us, and his commitment with the Jewish people is totally. This is my answer.
So let me ask you then, one of the things that in the Jewish community there is a concern about is the process of the beatification of Pope Pius XII. And many Jews have been concerned to have the Vatican archives open. Have you and the Pope had opportunity to discuss the role of the Vatican archives, how open the Catholic Church should be, whether this should or shouldn't happen?
When they are going to open the archives, this is not a decision of only of Bergoglio, but of the Department of State of the Vatican. But, and Bergoglio, I said, is a very coherent person. Please, read in this book the chapter regarding the Shoah, and you will find Bergoglio's position. My expressions here are very harsh. I said that I cannot understand how Pius XII could not to speak, not to shout out the very harsh words and his critic on the time when before his eyes, for instance, the Jews of Rome, his Jews, were taken to Auschwitz. And what is his answer and his commitment in this book? We have to search and know the truth. Bergoglio's, the Pope's words. So we have to wait and see.
So I want to invite Celia to make some trouble here.
You're going to make the trouble, or I'm going to make
No,
the
I'm going to invite you to make the trouble. This is an old tap dance Celia and I do. I set her up and then she gets in trouble. Since you are sitting next to a rabbi who has the Pope's ear, what would you have him say about the role of women in the Catholic Church to the Pope?
Bert. Oh, Bert. What I would have him say, or what I would say if Pope Francis were here, okay, I would say to him, Pope Francis, Francisco, hermano, padre, I would say to him, please sit and talk with women from all over the world, from all perspectives. Sit and open your heart to the huge spectrum of thinking, and not just those who agree with me. Sometimes I think, just open your heart to people who think like me. No. That's not fair. But the whole spectrum, and see, and then pray about that and reflect about that. and then see what happens. That's what I would say to him.
I'm grateful, and I'm also grateful, Celia, that you pointed out, and I think it's a lesson that we in America really haven't quite assimilated, the difference in Jewish Catholic dialogue here, particularly in the United States, and what it's like certainly in South America, throughout the South, and throughout the rest of the world. You know, in the U.S., on any given day, if you want to think about Jewish Catholic dialogue, all you have to do is go to the Supreme Court. I mean, Avram, I don't know if you realize how exceptional it is that our Supreme Court has no Protestants on it. You're either a Jew or a Catholic. And that's not a qualification, but it's an unusual moment. So it's a very, in some ways, I think, much more matter of fact here, much more accepted. And, you know, to say 50 years after Vatican II, I'm recognizing that Vatican II is a document that was produced in Rome. But what are the appreciable differences that Celia was trying to tease out between what we see up here, and I think you know the New York Jewish community reasonably well, versus the hurdles that you and your colleagues in South America as Jews face in the daily dialogue, not the exceptional friendship that you have, but the daily dialogue of Jews and Catholics? I mean, you've already begun to tease that out.
Look, I would like to add something about the question of women in the Catholic, knowing his way of thinking. Would all the power, the decision power, be in his hands, he would do a lot. He would do a lot. He will do a lot. Were some great, outstanding rabbis, Orthodox rabbis, that if they had the possibility, they tried to do something, but immediately when that rabbi tried, or those rabbis tried to do something, they felt that the establishment came against them, and they realize it's impossible for me to perform this change. For instance, and all the rabbis here who know exactly the history, when Rabbi Shlomo Goren tried to introduce changes in halakha, for us conservative rabbis, very understandable changes, very normal changes, and very revolutionary changes. Even for us, all the Orthodox world came against him. He has a very, very open mind. He's very traditional, but the first revolution we have to expect from him is on spirit, not on, let's say, on quotation signs, political issues, understanding political issues, for instance, the role of the women in the church. First of all, he would like to build up a new, powerful, from a spiritual point of view, church. Regarding the dialogue, how to go further with the dialogue in Argentina and United States, look, we know that we are showing a way, using your remark that the word journey is a special word which comes all the time in his vocabulary, in his sentences. I agree with you. And this is our idea. If you would like to cut vicious circles, you must go ahead. The idea is to go ahead, not to make rounds around vicious circles. And that's...
I appreciate that. I want to give a brief commercial and then ask you a hard question about what you're planning to do with the Pope. The commercial is this. This institution, as I opened, has a proud history of interreligious dialogue. And 2 years ago, our Chancellor, Arne Eisen, on this stage, engaged in a really wonderful dialogue with the Cardinal Archbishop of New York, Timothy Dolan. And it is so fitting that just today I got a letter from Cardinal Dolan who said he will join us again. You can mark your calendars, but you have to have a good calendar. On April 30th, 2015. I guess when you're the Archbishop of New York, you have quite a dance card. But Cardinal Dolan will be back here for yet another conversation with Chancellor Eisen, and that is something that we're looking forward to in furthering our own dialogue. But you and the Pope are really undertaking something extraordinary in traveling together to Israel. And you're not just going to be in Israel, you're going to be in Israel and the Palestinian territories, in Palestine, in Jerusalem and in Beit Lechem, or if I could say, in Yerushalayim and Al-Quds. What are your fears about this trip? What are your worries about the risks you're taking together?
From a security point of view, okay, I hope that Israeli security departments will take the necessary measures in order to warrant our integrity, and the same regarding the Palestinian authorities. I don't fear. Our task is, and our dream is, to perform a special spiritual moment for us, and as my good friend in the Vatican used to say, to show to the world that it's possible. It's possible, and let me tell you another anecdote. When I met Bergoglio as Pope for first time, that was last June. And I arranged with him to hello to a from the Israeli television to enter into Santa Marta and to record how we hugged one the other, and how was our encounter, our first encounter, being he a pope. And I asked from him a message for Israel. And you know, this is against the protocol norms in the Vatican. But despite of that, we both of us don't like much the protocol norms. We like to break them. And he, of course, I agreed. Of course, for me, that he agreed. And when we appeared before the cameras, and I told him, okay, now we have to transmit the message for Israel. So he said exactly these words. I translate from Spanish. You and me, our friendship and our dialogue is a sign that it is possible. And I continue the phrase, it's very nice, and will be in our possibilities to approach Rome to Jerusalem. What I'm not fear, the only fears I have is that political reasons not to disturb our dream, not to destroy our dream, to pray in front of the Kotel and to go together to Bethlehem. But the fears regarding spiritual questions, no. I feel very, very sure, and I feel that my friend feels very, very sure as well.
Well, I applaud you, that courage of conviction and the plans you are making. I want to have one last question, and I'm a little at a loss who I should ask this first to, because both Avram and Celia, this past Simchat Torah, just very few weeks ago, had what I might say are unusual holiday experiences. Avram was in the Vatican, in the Pope's apartment, where the Pope guaranteed the kashrut of the food he was eating, which is...
He was my personal mashgiach.
Yes, I mean, that's, So...
and he told me, by the way, he told to me, say, please, to the chief rabbi of Rome to give me the payment for my hashgocho.
So
this is a real anecdote.
Would you share a little bit more, though, of how it came to be that you spent Shmini Atzeret, Simchat Torah, and Shabbat Bereshit? It was a 3-day holiday, which apparently they observe at the Vatican. How did you spend it together, and what was it like for you?
You asked me something that I didn't respond yet, answered yet. How was that in this way? I was invited by the San Egidio congregation for a very, very important meeting in Rome, which began on Sunday around just 5 o'clock in Rome. Okay, for all the rabbis living in Europe or Israel, it's not a problem. Why? Because on the same Sunday in the morning they take a plane and in 3 hours they are in Rome. For me, it's a whole way, from Buenos Aires to Madrid, and from Madrid. So I had to depart from Buenos Aires. Impossible for me to depart on Motzei Shabbat, so I had to depart on Tuesday, because Wednesday was Hoshana Rabbah. The last day I had the possibilities to be transported or by plane or by car during Sukkot, during Sukkot. So I wrote to him, look, I'm going to be in Rome. Our intention is to meet one to the other, to have a meeting and to speak about all kind of themes. So I must arrive Rome Wednesday. And the second point is that Thursday and Friday I cannot use a bus, I cannot use a taxi because it's Yom Tov, and so we are losing, and Shabbos is Shabbos, so we are losing the possibility to have time to come together and to speak. Are there some possibilities to be with you in Santa Marta? He answered, of course, yes. Okay. So I spent the whole week in Santa Marta. The first day,
Can you explain to everyone exactly what Santa Marta is?
What Santa Marta? Very, very simple. I assume that all of you know what the Cathedral of San Pedro is. Yeah? What is this Cathedral of San Pedro? The famous cathedral. Behind the Cathedral of San Pedro, there is an empty space, and there is, in the times of John Paul II, they built there a hotel, just a hotel. In this hotel come together all the cardinals of the world when they have to elect a new pope, and when cardinals go to the Vatican, they used to pass their staying in Rome in this hotel. But he lives in this hotel. The Pope lives in this hotel, not in the Apostolic Palace, in this hotel. Why? he was asked about that, and he answered, because I would like to be close to the people, not to live in some isolated world, to be in touch with people. So as I arrived Santa Marta, I already told him, look, the ambassador of Israel for the Vatican invited me to eat lunch in the ghetto, in a restaurant in the ghetto area. So this is going to be the only time that I engage with an activity. Afterwards, I have my time free. In the mornings, I'm going. My plan is to go to the synagogue. This was another reason why I asked him to be in Santa Marta. As I arrived Santa Marta, one of his secretaries told me, look, the Holy Father is inviting you to share, if you accept, to share his table with you for dinner. If you accept, you have to wait for him on this and this point. It's in front of the restaurant, because there is a restaurant in Santa Marta, and the Pope has his own table, and he used to eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner on this table. In other tables, there are all the people who live in Santa Marta. When he entered into the restaurant, the people just say hello, buonasera, good evening, good morning, but not paying a special honor. The way is, okay, continue eating. Okay, he says buonasera, and continue eating. As in the first dinner, he said to me, okay, your place is this. And it was at its right. So I shared all the meals with him in Santa Marta. And of course, that I arranged, and this is not a joke, that's the truth, what I can eat and what I cannot eat. And I gave him the details and his secretary. And I assure you that he kept all the details. Regarding the prayings, at the evening was Shmini Atzeret. I told him, look, I have to say Kiddush. And he said to me, do what you have to do. And all the secretaries, and he stood, and they heard when I said the Kiddush and the Shehecheyanu, and after the Kiddush and the Shehecheyanu, and after the Hamotzi, I said, I translated in a wide sense into Spanish, we are thanking you, God, for the bread and for the meals you gave us. And they answered, Amen. And after the meals, he said his blessings and the sign of the cross. And okay, I stood, and I said my prayer after the meals, and he said his prayer, and that was a mutual respect, one for the other. We know exactly what we are sharing in our faith conceptions, and there is overall a very deep respect from one to the other.
Thank you. I want to say that we say the bracha, the blessing Shehecheyanu. We say, thank you, God, for keeping us alive and sustaining us and bringing us to this occasion. And I hope everybody in this room appreciates that in the 2,000-year history of Judaism and Catholicism, that's a big Shehecheyanu, they said. So I really, it's just extraordinary. And it is the absolute fruit of friendship. Celia, I want to close by asking you, what did you do for Simchat Torah?
I went to my shul. For real. I belong to a really wonderful parish named Our Lady of Refuge, and there are some people here from that parish here tonight. 4 people sitting here, and I think Father Perry and Mary right here. Any other refugees? We call ourselves the refugees. Oh, Loretta, yes, and Victor, thank you. Our Lady of Refuge is in Flatbush, and you know, I'm telling you a secret. Flatbush is the center of the universe. Mm-hmm. Don't tell anybody. And we've been engaged for many years, since 1997, in an ongoing collaboration with East Midwood Jewish Center, which is a Masorti synagogue down the street, about 6 blocks away. It's about a 10-minute walk, 15-minute walk from our parish. And we do many different kinds of things. The synagogue is like many in that neighborhood. It's mainly Ashkenazim, 3rd generation, but you know, Russian Jews in there. There's some Egyptians. There's some Moroccans. There's some immigrants, and well established. Our parish is, some people are well established. It's hugely, I don't even know, it's probably 90% immigrant. It's Latino, British West Indian, and Haitian, and then some people who were like me. And at any rate, we do a number of things together. Sometimes we do educational events. We learn about themes in one another's traditions, or we learn about festivals. Sometimes we do, we always, every year, we would not even think about questioning this. We have a pre-Thanksgiving service, the weekend before Thanksgiving, that brings together all of our people, and sometimes other people, especially from the Muslim community. Well, one of the things that we decided to do this year was to go down to the synagogue for Simchat Torah. We did it about 2 years ago, and people in the parish enjoyed it so much, got so much out of it, that wanted to do it again. So, and some of the people are here tonight. So we went down, and of course the kids were running wild, and one of the women in the parish took her granddaughter, who was about 6 or 7, and so she was whisked off by another 7-year-old and joined in the running wild. And then the scroll of the Torah was unrolled and shared among the whole congregation, standing in a circle. And we learned together. And all of us were profoundly moved and had a sense of the ways in which the Torah, and even the physical reality of it, is a kind of physical representation of the presence of God in the way we understand. We have understandings of that in sacrament. And then, of course, in and out was dancing with the Torah. And at one point, the co-president came up to me and said, "Celia, do you want to dance?" And I said, "Sure, but is this halachically okay?" And he said, "Oh, sure." And he doesn't know a whole lot. So I said, "Go ask somebody," because I know that there are people in that community that would be profoundly offended if I didn't, behave properly. So he came back and he says, "It's okay." So I danced. Bert said to me, "So what did you do? Did you dance?" I said, "Sure, I danced." And it was one of the most stirring. I hardly could move in the beginning because I was so profoundly moved, not only at the significance, the religious and the spiritual significance of dancing with the Torah, but also of what it meant in the history of our peoples, that after centuries and centuries and centuries of sometimes hatred, sometimes murder, often at best misunderstanding, there I was with my friends from the parish, the kids running wild together and peeking out from under the tablecloth over in at the side of the room, and me, a nun, dancing with the Torah. And that's what I did for Simchat Torah.
I dare say we can't ask for two better visions of what it means to have interreligious dialogue. Thank you very much.